Hello everyone. The response to our paranormal update on Understanding the Times radio, Like a Roaring Lion, was phenomenal. So there were questions that came up and I thought it would be just easier to answer them on video instead of writing everyone back individually because yes, those of you who are waiting to hear from me know I am behind. So I thought I'd sit down with you today, and Jen agreed, and we talk a little bit about the Jezebel spirit, what's behind it. We had some strong reaction to that. Don't be angry. We're going to talk about it, and then you can let me know what you think. So is there a Jezebel spirit that can really possess people or influence their lives or influence the government or influence a territory, a piece of land, or a location? So who was Jezebel? Well, Jezebel was an actual historical woman. She was the wife of King Ahab of Israel, not of Judah, of Israel, because remember at the time of about 830 BC, when Jezebel reigned with Ahab, the kingdom of Israel had been divided. So you had the kingdom of Israel to the north, and you had the kingdom of Judah to the south. So it had been divided into two kingdoms. So Jezebel was real, and we find out quite a bit about her from the biblical record. And that's what I would really like to stick to here. And you can see here, I had to show you this. This is a picture of Jezebel's seal from biblicalarchaeology.org. So very fascinating little peek into the historical side of Jezebel. So just how bad was Jezebel? Well, she was pretty bad. What kinds of things did she cause to happen? What was she responsible for? Well, let's see. She was responsible for murder, terrible murder. She broke the laws of God in many ways. She incited her husband to break the laws of God in many ways. As you can see here, Jezebel led her husband astray. She encouraged corrupt worship to false gods. And these false gods, they were bad. We're talking Baal here. We're talking child sacrifice in the most brutal ways and unbelievable sexual immorality. That's what Jezebel did. She incited ungodly behavior, of course, unbecoming a king, King Ahab. Not that he was the best of people anyway, or the best king anyway, and she practiced deceit, treachery, superiority in order to fulfill a covetous and controlling nature. She was so bad that the biblical record shows that not one good thing came from what Jezebel did. Now, by that I mean, let's take, for example, Potiphar's wife. Potiphar's wife was pretty bad. She accused Joseph of rape and had him thrown into prison, which was almost certainly a death sentence. So at the very best scenario, Joseph would have sat there and rotted for who knows how many years because he was just a simple Israeli or Jewish slave. So what she did, Potiphar's wife, was pretty bad. But even out of that terrible thing, God brought something good, which of course, as we all know, was Joseph becoming Pharaoh and saving Israel, God saving Israel through him. But when it came to Jezebel, there is not one good thing that God chose to bring from her. That's pretty significant. Now, very important here. We said what she was, very focused on sexual immorality with Baal and Ashtoreth, goddess Ashtoreth. And we talked about that a little bit, but one thing you have to realize here is the contrast, which is, what was Jezebel not? Jezebel was a historical person. She was an evil woman. What was she not? She was not a demon. Okay? So, in both the Old Testament and the New Testament, Jezebel is a historical woman. That's who Jesus is talking about in Revelation 2:20. He is talking about a real, physical, historical woman who was doing what? She was causing the church to fall into sexual sin. And if you look carefully at that verse, sexuality is referred to twice. So Jesus is very firm about referring to her as someone who is living and as someone who he is very disgusted with and someone who he will punish. He ends by saying, "And I will kill her children." So if anything from that verse, we should take into account the seriousness of sexual sins. So here she is, Jezebel, in Revelation. Now, yes, she's a historical woman, but because this is prophecy, we have the fact that it will stretch down through the ages. So down through the ages, yes, you see sins like Jezebel's, sins like Jezebel's. And that's the main point I want to focus on. What we're looking at here is error in identity. There is nowhere in the Bible where a demon is named Jezebel. There just isn't. Jesus mentions a woman in Revelation, and yes, we can see those same sins repeated down through history by humanity, but there is nowhere where he names her demonic. Now, this whole error developed in a big way in the 1950s in America, and it was because of a man named William Branham. He started out as an evangelical preacher, you know, the old tent meetings, and then he went down a very bad road, and he actually was consorting with a demon. Now, I mean consorting, I mean he said that a demon stood over his shoulder and spoke to him during his meetings. That's what I mean by consorting, taking information from something demonic. And out of William Branham's ministry came Pentecostal oneness, which is a cult that denies the Trinity. Now, you can see here on this little video that I pulled from YouTube that William Branham actually did a sermon on Jezebel, and it was quite extensive. And from that time, the name Jezebel and the whole scenario of her being able to possess or influence the church really grew, and today has become widespread. So even though Jesus is referring to a woman historically and to her sins, William Branham took that and took the character of Jezebel and the sins of Jezebel from the Old Testament and made from it false doctrine. So I can't tell you, I feel very strongly about this, I can't tell you how it felt to sit in a counseling session at a church and hear the pastor praying to cast out the demon of Jezebel from this poor woman who had come in there to get help in her life. Christians cannot be possessed, and we've gone through that many times, I know, and I'm sure you know, on Understanding the Times. And to lay that burden on someone, or to lay that burden on a daughter, that your daughter is demon-possessed because she is rebellious or possessed by the spirit of Jezebel. I'm sorry, but that is just not biblical. Please, send me the verses that say Jezebel is a demon, an actual spirit that can possess or influence us. I say, and I really believe this is true based on what Jesus said in Revelations, I say that Jesus is referring to the sins that we all commit. And by all, I mean every church down through the centuries, because that is what he is talking about in Revelation. So, this is the error, that a specific spirit named Jezebel is alive and manifesting itself today, and that she can possess Christians or possess territories like the New Apostolic Reformation teaches, NAR. They teach the spirit of Jezebel. They teach that she can possess territories and people, but there is no biblical basis for it. Sin is alive. Sin is evil. Satan is alive. Satan attacks us in many different ways. But the New Apostolic Reformation and those who still follow William Branham's teaching, Oneness Pentecostalism, are saying that this spirit of Jezebel is something else, that it is a real influential spirit, and that it attacks us, Christians and non-Christians. This biblically is error. So remember this, if you are going to argue for a special demonic spirit of Jezebel, then you need to provide the biblical verses and the foundation that support it. So, one more thing. Some of you brought up the spirit of Elijah. And you compare the spirit of Elijah to the spirit of Jezebel. And this comparison is taken totally out of context. When the Bible refers to the spirit of Elijah, it is referring back to the prophecies of the Messiah. So this is a messianic verse or reference. And it has nothing to do with an outside spirit or anything like that. Now, can God give an extra measure of his power to people? Absolutely. But what I am saying is you cannot compare Jezebel to the messianic prophecy of the Elijah spirit. It just does not work from a hermeneutical standpoint. And of course, hermeneutics is a special way that we look at the Bible. We study the Bible through hermeneutic points, and it helps us to understand it. So hermeneutically, you cannot compare these two. Historically, you cannot compare these two. It doesn't work, right? Let me give you one more example. How about Judas? Why isn't there a spirit of Judas? Judas was far worse than Jezebel. Why don't we have the Judas spirit today? Think about that one. Okay, and now moving on to the cross. We had a lot of comments from people, especially on YouTube, saying, why did Jan say that we should put up a cross? There's no power in objects. Well, of course not. We're asking all of you for some grace. Look at Jan. Look at how many years she's taught. And, look at things that I've said. Where do we place the power? We place the power in the name of Jesus Christ. It's his name that causes the demons to flee. It's his name that protects us. What a cross does when you are in this really scary experience, and those of you know out there, you've been in these places where you feel such an overwhelming sense of evil. It is a really scary place to be. Well, what the cross does, if you bring it in the room or if you wear it, it comforts you. It is a reminder of the power of Jesus Christ that we have in his name, and it is a comfort. It is not an icon like you would find in the Catholic Church or the Greek Orthodox Church. It is not an icon. It is simply a representation of the power, the comfort that we have in Jesus Christ. It just has made a huge difference in my life and Jan's life. And honestly, since when do we as Christians have a problem with the presence of the cross in our home or in our rooms or on our person? Ask yourself, why do you wear it? So just to end with this, at the name of Jesus, every knee will bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. And every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. That is Philippians 2:10 through 11. That is where our true power lies. Thanks for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them below and we will try to answer them for you. Thanks so much, and God bless you.